GameRanx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some first impressions and some straight-up gameplay of the latest games releasing. Today we're talking about Destiny, Rise of Iron. Let me just get this out of the way. I know a lot of you guys are popping in here just to write in the comments, haha, people still play Destiny? Well, yes, apparently they really do, because the servers were down the entire night this thing launched because so many people were trying to play. So there's your answer. But for the people who are still curious in Destiny, they probably know it's been a full year since we've seen any real story content for Destiny. Sure, you know, Bungie has brought in a bunch of timed events like Iron Banner, Trials of Osiris, the Sparrow Racing League thing that was pretty fun, and even the holiday events for Valentine's Day and Halloween and stuff, but we really haven't seen a significant content drop since last September's The Taken King. This new quote-unquote expansion, Rise of Iron, brings with it a new story campaign, there's a new multiplayer mode, a new raid, a new strike, a higher light level, new loot, and most importantly, at least to me, dogs. Not really, I mean, they're not dogs, they're wolves, but they're dog adjacent. I think one of the biggest problems with this DLC is that you can't actually pet the wolves, which I think is a big failure on Bungie's part and a huge missed opportunity. But I digress. The structure of Rise of Iron is not unlike last year's Taken King. You're thrown into a new set of story missions that introduce you to the expansion's new areas, and this time around there's even a new social hub. And basically you get introduced to the new concepts, you play through the 10 or so story missions before you're unleashed on the world to pursue new quests, strikes, and patrol missions in order to get some pretty cool loot drops. You're working to push yourself up to light level 360 so you're ready for the new raid when it comes Friday after the release. For Destiny players, that's business as usual. This is new content, you fly through it because you love it and you've been wanting more. Story-wise, and there's actual real story here, you're roped into investigating this strange fallen activity by Lord Saladin, who you'll probably recognize as the lone Iron Lord in charge of the game's Iron Banner PvP events. Saladin has you push through into a new region of Earth beyond the Cosmodrome's walls known as the Plaguelands, which I gotta say is a pretty awesome environment, and it's up to you to clear out and shut down fallen activity as they experiment with an old and dangerous nanomachine virus thing called SIVA, because basically what they're doing with that is using it as a means to augment fallen soldiers as a possible assault on Earth's last city. This virus that has been brought back is the one that all of the Iron Lords except Saladin himself died to seal it away. And you probably heard this before, probably with Taken King, but the story, for what it is good. The pacing keeps you moving along, and the voice acting for characters like Saladin and the new Vanguard content Shiro 6 are on par with last year's Taken King, and while not as long as Taken King, the amount of actual cutscenes and in-game storytelling is pretty on par and well beyond anything vanilla Destiny had, which I think was still one of the biggest complaints of the game overall. It's nice to see Bungie has really been constantly working to improve that with all these little additions. Our main complaint isn't that the story isn't that good or that it ends abruptly, but just that it ends way too soon. The story content in Rise of Iron is among Destiny's best, with the expansion's last mission being one of, if not one of the best story encounters in the game's 2-year run. This overall playthrough, though, frankly, is just short. Story aside, the game's new additions do feel pretty fresh. The Plaguelands, like I said, are really visually interesting, and it's just a fun new place to play. It has new hazards like lava pits and the like, and there's a surprising amount of verticality here, which is definitely welcome. Because, you know, going back once again to vanilla Destiny, there was just a lot of flat, boring play spaces. The addition of the new Archon Forge challenges are pretty interesting as well. It feels like a good blending of the mechanics of Prison of Elders and Court of Oryx. A lot like Court of Oryx, you start encounters by offering an item to a terminal. This time around, it's called a SIVA offering rather than the Court's runes, if you remember. And this brings forth a wave-based encounter wherein you need to take out all the waves and then a boss within the specified time limit for loot drops. And, you know, it's straight up fun. In our experience, the Archon Forge has been pretty damn difficult, but that could be due in part to not being at max light level, or because some people are just still figuring out how to tackle the encounters, which to me is, you know, some of the fun in and of itself. But seriously, the whole Archon situation makes for a fun and at times pretty intense co-op experience. And since we're running everything down, like I said earlier, the new raid isn't available until Friday after this release, so unfortunately we can't talk about it yet. The game's competitive aspect, though, also gets a pretty good refresh, with the expansion adding several new maps into the rotation. And something that I think a lot of people are going to care about is the new PvP mode called Supremacy. Supremacy functions kind of a lot like something like Kill Confirmed in Call of Duty. It's very similar just because when you drop an enemy in the Crucible, they drop a crest in the form of an engram, and whoever picks up the engram gets the point. It's probably our least favorite mode in Destiny because at times it can just feel very frustrating. But the new maps they added to the other modes, though, are pretty damn great, and they really kind of liven up the multiplayer aspect that, you know, could have went stale, but surprisingly hasn't. If you're going into Rise of Iron similar to Taken King, you know, expecting this grand campaign that just rights all the wrongs of Destiny, you're gonna be pretty disappointed. This expansion, and I use that term very lightly, is a supplement, like a stopgap, to hopefully keep the hardcore and surprisingly sizable Destiny fanbase at bay for a couple of months while they solve the raid, max out out their light levels to 385 and then wait for the hard mode to raise it to 400. At a $30 price point, Destiny Rise of Iron is an absolute yes if you're a big fan of the game. If you're still playing often and just thirsting for more content, yeah, we can recommend it. It's a little pricey, but at the end of the day, it's more of what you want. If maybe you played vanilla Destiny or you've never played Destiny and you jump into this thinking that your mind will be absolutely changed, I don't know if that's quite the case here. I wouldn't look to Destiny Rise of Iron for that, because it seems like that's been a common misconception, so I just like to disperse that. Rise of Iron is definitely not here to solve all Destiny's problems, and sometimes it feels like it's held back by the game's still existing framework, but the shooting remains some of the best around, and we're still enjoying our time with it so far. So guys, that's Destiny Rise of Iron. I broke down the new features, the pros and cons, and some general personal opinion here, and I want to know from you guys in the comments how you feel about Rise of Iron. If you did jump into the new update, how do you feel about it? Did you breeze through the story stuff as quick as we did? And are you digging some of the new multiplayer PvP additions, or do you just straight up hate Destiny and you came here for no reason just other than to tell us that? Let us know anything you want about Destiny down in the comments. We'll be there, and you guys know the deal. Clicking the like button helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it, and we could do more before you buys just because you guys do that. Subscribing is a great idea too, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.